Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel.
Today, we're diving into a topic that can feel heavy for many of us: guilt.
It can be a real burden, weighing us down and keeping us stuck in the past.
Today, we'll explore Buddhist teachings on dispelling guilt.
We'll learn how these ancient wisdoms can help us let go of the past and move forward with a lighter heart. Buddhism, one of the world's oldest and most profound spiritual traditions, offers deep insights into human psychology and the causes of suffering.
Among its many teachings, Buddhism addresses the pervasive and often debilitating emotion of guilt.
In contemporary life, guilt can act as a significant source of mental suffering, hindering individuals from experiencing inner peace and contentment. By understanding and applying Buddhist teachings, one can learn to dispel guilt, fostering a more harmonious and liberated existence.
1. The nature of guilt.
Guilt is a complex and multifaceted emotion that can significantly impact an individual's mental and emotional well-being.
In Buddhist teachings, guilt is viewed through the lens of the mind's conditioned nature and the principle of dependent origination, pratitya samutpada. According to Buddhism, guilt, like all emotions, arises due to specific conditions and causes. Understanding the nature of guilt from this perspective is essential for dispelling its negative effects and fostering a more balanced state of mind. At its core, guilt is a feeling of responsibility or remorse for actions perceived as wrong or harmful. These actions can be directed towards oneself or others, and the resulting guilt can vary in intensity and duration. Buddhism recognizes that guilt often stems from a sense of moral or ethical transgression, where one believes they have violated a personal or societal code of conduct. This violation can lead to self-reproach, regret, and a desire to make amends. Buddhist teachings emphasize that guilt is not an inherent aspect of the self but a transient mental state. This transient nature means that guilt arises, persists for a time, and eventually fades away, depending on the conditions that support its existence. By understanding that guilt is not a permanent fixture of the mind, individuals can begin to detach from it and reduce its hold over their thoughts and emotions. This detachment is a crucial step in the process of overcoming guilt. One of the key aspects of Buddhist psychology is the understanding that emotions, including guilt, are the results of past actions, karma, and mental formations, samskaras. Karma, the law of cause and effect, explains that our actions create imprints on the mind, which manifest as various mental states and emotions. When these imprints align with feelings of wrongdoing or moral failure, guilt arises as a natural consequence. Samskaras, or mental formations, are the habitual patterns of thought and behavior that shape our responses to experiences. These formations can perpetuate feelings of guilt if they are not recognized and transformed through mindful awareness and practice. Dependent origination, a central tenet of Buddhist philosophy, further elucidates the nature of guilt. This principle posits that all phenomena, including emotions, arise in dependence upon multiple causes and conditions. Guilt, therefore, does not exist in isolation but is contingent upon various factors such as personal values, societal norms, past experiences, and present circumstances. By deconstructing the conditions that give rise to guilt, individuals can gain insight into its origins and learn to address the underlying causes rather than merely reacting to the emotion itself. In Buddhism, the conditioned nature of guilt highlights its impermanence and the possibility of transformation. The Buddha taught that clinging to any emotion, including guilt, leads to suffering, dukkha. This suffering arises from the attachment to the idea of a fixed self that is defined by past actions and perceived mistakes. By cultivating a deeper understanding of the impermanent and conditioned nature of guilt, individuals can begin to let go of the self-identification with their perceived flaws and failures. The recognition that guilt is a conditioned response rather than an intrinsic quality allows for a more compassionate and forgiving approach to oneself. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of self-compassion and the understanding that everyone is capable of making mistakes. These mistakes are not indicative of one's inherent worth but are opportunities for learning and growth.
By embracing this perspective, individuals can reduce the self-critical and judgmental thoughts that often accompany guilt, fostering a more balanced and accepting attitude towards themselves. Another significant aspect of understanding guilt in Buddhism is the distinction between healthy remorse and unhealthy guilt. Healthy remorse is a constructive emotion that acknowledges wrongdoing and motivates positive change. It is an essential part of ethical living and personal growth, as it encourages individuals to reflect on their actions and make amends where necessary. Unhealthy guilt, on the other hand, is a destructive emotion that leads to self-condemnation and paralyzes personal development. This type of guilt often becomes a persistent burden that undermines one's mental and emotional well-being. Buddhism encourages individuals to cultivate healthy remorse while transforming unhealthy guilt. This transformation involves recognizing the difference between the two and consciously shifting one's focus from self-blame to constructive action. By acknowledging mistakes and taking responsibility for them without falling into the trap of excessive guilt, individuals can learn from their experiences and move forward with a sense of purpose and clarity. Moreover, the Buddhist practice of mindfulness, sati, plays a crucial role in understanding and dispelling guilt. Mindfulness involves observing one's thoughts and emotions with a non-judgmental and compassionate attitude. By practicing mindfulness, individuals can become more aware of the arising and passing of guilt in their minds. This awareness allows them to see guilt as a transient mental event rather than a fixed reality, reducing its impact on their overall sense of well-being. In addition to mindfulness, the cultivation of wisdom, prajna, is essential for understanding the nature of guilt. Wisdom in Buddhism involves seeing things as they truly are, beyond the distortions of delusion and ignorance. By developing wisdom, individuals can gain a clearer perspective on their actions and the conditions that give rise to guilt. This clarity helps them to distinguish between genuine moral transgressions and unnecessary self-reproach, enabling them to respond to guilt in a more balanced and effective manner. Ultimately, the Buddhist approach to guilt emphasizes the importance of transforming one's relationship with this emotion. Rather than being dominated by guilt, individuals are encouraged to use it as a catalyst for personal growth and ethical living. This transformation requires a combination of mindfulness, self-compassion, ethical conduct, and wisdom. By integrating these practices into their daily lives, individuals can dispel the negative effects of guilt and cultivate a more peaceful and liberated state of mind. In conclusion, the nature of guilt in Buddhist teachings is understood as a conditioned and impermanent mental state that arises from specific causes and conditions. By recognizing the transient nature of guilt and addressing its underlying causes, individuals can transform their relationship with this emotion. Through mindfulness, self-compassion, ethical living, and the cultivation of wisdom, they can dispel guilt and foster a more harmonious and balanced state of being. The teachings of the Buddha offer a comprehensive and compassionate approach to dealing with guilt, providing practical tools for overcoming this pervasive and often debilitating emotion. 2. The Buddhist perspective on guilt. In Buddhism, guilt is viewed not as an inherent flaw within an individual but as a transient mental state that arises due to specific causes and conditions. This understanding is rooted in the Buddhist principles of dependent origination, pratitya samutpada, and the nature of the mind's conditioned responses. By examining the Buddhist perspective on guilt, one can gain profound insights into how to address and dispel this emotion, leading to a more balanced and liberated existence. Dependent origination and guilt. Dependent origination is a fundamental concept in Buddhism that explains how all phenomena, including emotions, arise due to the interplay of various conditions. According to this principle, nothing exists independently. Everything is interconnected and contingent upon multiple factors. Guilt, therefore, does not exist in isolation but is the result of a complex web of causes, such as personal experiences, societal norms, and individual perceptions of right and wrong. This interconnectedness implies that guilt is not a fixed or permanent state but a temporary mental formation that can be altered by changing the conditions that give rise to it. By understanding the specific causes and conditions that lead to feelings of guilt, individuals can begin to address and transform these factors, thereby reducing the power that guilt holds over their minds.
The conditioned nature of guilt.
Buddhist teachings emphasize that the mind is conditioned by past actions, karma, and mental formations, samskaras.
Karma, the law of cause and effect, suggests that our present experiences are shaped by our past actions.
When individuals perceive that they have committed actions that violate their ethical or moral standards, guilt arises as a natural consequence of these karmic imprints. Samskaras, or mental formations, are habitual patterns of thought and behavior that develop over time.
These mental formations can reinforce feelings of guilt if they are not recognized and transformed through mindful practice.
The conditioned nature of guilt means that it is not an intrinsic quality of the self but a response shaped by past experiences and mental habits. This understanding encourages individuals to see guilt as a modifiable aspect of their mental landscape rather than an immutable characteristic. By recognizing the conditioned origins of guilt, one can begin to cultivate a more compassionate and objective view of oneself, reducing the self-critical thoughts that often accompany this emotion.
The role of mindfulness and awareness.
Mindfulness, sati, and awareness, sampayanya, are central to Buddhist practice and play a crucial role in addressing guilt. Mindfulness involves observing one's thoughts and emotions with a non-judgmental and compassionate attitude. By cultivating mindfulness, individuals can become more aware of the arising and passing of guilt in their minds. This awareness allows them to see guilt as a transient mental event rather than a fixed reality, reducing its impact on their overall sense of well-being.
Through mindfulness, individuals learn to observe guilt without being overwhelmed by it.
This practice helps to create a space between the emotion and the self, enabling a more balanced and compassionate response. By seeing guilt as just another mental event that arises and passes away, individuals can reduce the tendency to identify with the emotion, thereby diminishing its hold over their minds.
Self-compassion and forgiveness. Buddhism places a strong emphasis on compassion, karuna, not only towards others but also towards oneself.
Self-compassion involves treating oneself with the same kindness and understanding that one would offer to a friend facing similar circumstances.
When dealing with guilt, self-compassion encourages individuals to acknowledge their mistakes without harsh self-judgment. It involves recognizing that everyone makes mistakes and that these mistakes are opportunities for learning and growth.
Forgiveness, both of oneself and others, is a powerful practice for dispelling guilt.
In Buddhism, forgiveness is not seen as condoning harmful actions but as a means of releasing the mental and emotional burdens associated with those actions. Forgiving oneself involves recognizing that clinging to guilt is not productive and that true repentance lies in making amends and resolving to act differently in the future.
By practicing forgiveness, individuals can free themselves from the cycle of blame and recrimination, allowing for healing and reconciliation.
Ethical conduct and moral integrity. While Buddhism teaches the importance of overcoming guilt, it also emphasizes the significance of ethical conduct, sila. Living in accordance with ethical principles helps prevent the actions that give rise to guilt in the first place.
The 5 precepts, which are foundational ethical guidelines in Buddhism, encourage individuals to refrain from harming living beings, stealing, engaging in sexual misconduct, lying, and consuming intoxicants. Adhering to these precepts cultivates a life of integrity and moral clarity, reducing the likelihood of actions that lead to guilt. Ethical conduct creates a foundation for mental peace and stability, fostering an environment where guilt is less likely to arise. By living ethically, individuals can prevent the conditions that give rise to guilt, thereby reducing its occurrence and intensity.
Healthy remorse versus unhealthy guilt. The Buddhist perspective on guilt distinguishes between healthy remorse and unhealthy guilt. Healthy remorse is a constructive emotion that acknowledges wrongdoing and motivates positive change. It is an essential part of ethical living and personal growth, as it encourages individuals to reflect on their actions and make amends where necessary. Unhealthy guilt, on the other hand, is a destructive emotion that leads to self-condemnation and paralyzes personal development.
This type of guilt often becomes a persistent burden that undermines one's mental and emotional well-being.
Buddhism encourages individuals to cultivate healthy remorse while transforming unhealthy guilt.
This transformation involves recognizing the difference between the two and consciously shifting one's focus from self-blame to constructive action. By acknowledging mistakes and taking responsibility for them without falling into the trap of excessive guilt, individuals can learn from their experiences and move forward with a sense of purpose and clarity.
Impermanence and NonSelf. Understanding the Buddhist concepts of impermanence, anicca, and non-self, anatta, is crucial for transforming one's relationship with guilt.
Impermanence teaches that all phenomena, including emotions, are transient and constantly changing. Guilt, like all other emotions, is impermanent. By deeply understanding and internalizing the truth of impermanence, individuals can develop a more balanced perspective on guilt. They can see that guilt, while painful, will pass in time. This understanding reduces the power that guilt holds over the mind, enabling a more peaceful and liberated state of being. The concept of non-self suggests that there is no fixed, unchanging self that experiences guilt. Instead, the self is a collection of ever-changing physical and mental processes. By realizing that the self is not a static entity, individuals can reduce the tendency to identify with guilt. This realization helps to break the cycle of self-reproach and fosters a more flexible and compassionate attitude towards oneself.
Practical applications. Applying the Buddhist perspective on guilt involves both inner and outer practices.
Mindfulness and self-compassion are essential tools for observing and transforming guilt. Ethical conduct and forgiveness help to prevent and release guilt, while understanding impermanence and non-self provides a deeper philosophical foundation for these practices. In daily life, individuals can cultivate mindfulness through meditation and mindful awareness of their thoughts and emotions. Self-compassion can be nurtured through practices such as loving-kindness meditation, metta bhavana, where one generates feelings of love and compassion towards oneself and others. Ethical living can be supported by adhering to the 5 precepts and reflecting on the impact of one's actions. Forgiveness, both of oneself and others, can be practiced by consciously choosing to let go of resentment and guilt, focusing instead on making amends and moving forward. By integrating these practices into their daily lives, individuals can transform their relationship with guilt, turning it from a source of suffering into an opportunity for growth and liberation.
In conclusion, the Buddhist perspective on guilt offers a comprehensive and compassionate approach to understanding and dispelling this emotion.
By recognizing the conditioned nature of guilt, cultivating mindfulness and self-compassion, living ethically, and understanding the principles of impermanence and non-self, individuals can transform their relationship with guilt. These practices provide a path towards a more harmonious and liberated state of being, free from the burdens of excessive guilt.
3. The practice of self-compassion. In the journey of dispelling guilt, the practice of self-compassion is a fundamental element in Buddhist teachings.
Self-compassion involves treating oneself with the same kindness, understanding, and care that one would offer to a close friend. It is a crucial practice that helps individuals overcome the paralyzing effects of guilt and fosters emotional resilience and inner peace. By cultivating self-compassion, individuals can address their feelings of guilt in a constructive and healing manner.
The foundation of self-compassion in Buddhism.
The Buddha's teachings emphasize compassion, karuna, as a central virtue, which extends not only towards others but also towards oneself. Self-compassion is rooted in the understanding that all beings, including oneself, are deserving of love and kindness. This practice is based on the recognition of common humanity and the acceptance of one's imperfections.
In Buddhism, the cultivation of self-compassion is seen as an antidote to the harsh self-criticism and judgment that often accompany guilt. Self-compassion is closely linked to the concepts of impermanence, anicca, and non-self, anatta.
The understanding that all experiences and emotions, including guilt, are transient and do not define the self is foundational in Buddhist practice. By internalizing these principles, individuals can develop a more forgiving and accepting attitude towards themselves, reducing the tendency to identify with their perceived mistakes and shortcomings.
Components of self-compassion.
Self-compassion in Buddhism can be broken down into three main components: self-kindness, recognition of common humanity, and mindfulness.
Each of these components plays a vital role in transforming one's relationship with guilt.
Self-kindness. This involves treating oneself with warmth and understanding during times of failure or difficulty, rather than engaging in harsh self-criticism. When experiencing guilt, self-kindness encourages individuals to comfort themselves and recognize that everyone makes mistakes. This approach helps to mitigate the negative impact of guilt and promotes emotional healing. Recognition of common humanity. This component emphasizes the understanding that all humans are imperfect and that suffering and mistakes are part of the shared human experience. By recognizing that guilt and mistakes are universal experiences, individuals can feel less isolated and more connected to others. This sense of common humanity helps to reduce the intensity of guilt and fosters a more compassionate perspective towards oneself. Mindfulness. Mindfulness involves being present with one's emotions without judgment or suppression.
When dealing with guilt, mindfulness allows individuals to observe their feelings with clarity and detachment.
This practice helps to prevent the escalation of negative emotions and enables a more balanced response to guilt. Mindfulness also helps individuals to see guilt as a transient mental event, reducing its power over their thoughts and actions.
Practical techniques for cultivating self-compassion. Buddhist practice offers various techniques for cultivating self-compassion, which can be particularly effective in addressing feelings of guilt. These techniques include loving kindness meditation, reflective meditation, and mindful self-inquiry. Loving kindness meditation, metta bhavana. This meditation practice involves generating feelings of love and compassion towards oneself and others. It begins with directing loving kindness towards oneself, using phrases such as, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I live with ease." By repeating these phrases with genuine intention, individuals can cultivate a sense of warmth and compassion towards themselves. This practice helps to counteract the harsh self-criticism associated with guilt and promotes a more compassionate self-view. Reflective meditation. Reflective meditation involves contemplating one's actions and their consequences in a mindful and compassionate manner. When addressing guilt, this practice encourages individuals to acknowledge their mistakes without falling into self-blame. It involves reflecting on the causes and conditions that led to the actions, recognizing one's intentions, and considering how to make amends or act more skillfully in the future. Reflective meditation helps to transform guilt into a constructive force for personal growth. Mindful self-inquiry. This technique involves exploring one's thoughts and emotions with curiosity and openness. When experiencing guilt, mindful self-inquiry encourages individuals to ask themselves questions such as, "What am I feeling right now? What are the thoughts and beliefs underlying this guilt? And how can I respond to myself with kindness in this situation?" By engaging in this process, individuals can gain deeper insights into their guilt and develop a more compassionate response. The benefits of self-compassion. Cultivating self-compassion has numerous benefits for mental and emotional well-being. It helps to reduce the intensity and duration of guilt, making it easier to move past mistakes and focus on positive actions. Self-compassion also fosters resilience, enabling individuals to cope with difficult emotions and challenges more effectively. By treating themselves with kindness and understanding, individuals can build a stronger foundation for emotional health and personal growth. Self-compassion also enhances interpersonal relationships. When individuals are kind to themselves,
they are more likely to extend compassion and understanding to others. This creates a positive feedback loop, where compassionate self-treatment leads to more compassionate interactions with others, which in turn reinforces self-compassion.
Furthermore, self-compassion supports ethical living.
By acknowledging mistakes with kindness and a commitment to improvement, individuals can make more mindful and ethical choices in the future. This aligns with the Buddhist emphasis on ethical conduct, sila, as a foundation for spiritual practice and personal development.
Overcoming obstacles to self-compassion.
Despite its benefits, cultivating self-compassion can be challenging, especially for those who are accustomed to harsh self-criticism. Common obstacles to self-compassion include deep-seated beliefs in the necessity of self-punishment for mistakes, fear of becoming complacent or irresponsible, and societal norms that equate self-compassion with selfishness or weakness.
Buddhist teachings address these obstacles by emphasizing the distinction between self-compassion and self-indulgence.
Self-compassion is not about excusing harmful behavior or avoiding responsibility. Rather, it is about acknowledging mistakes with kindness and a genuine desire to improve. The Buddha's teachings encourage individuals to view self-compassion as a source of strength and resilience, rather than a sign of weakness. To overcome these obstacles, individuals can practice self-compassion incrementally, starting with small acts of kindness towards themselves and gradually building a more compassionate self-view.
Seeking support from a spiritual community, Sangha, can also be helpful, as it provides encouragement and validation for the practice of self-compassion. Integrating self-compassion into daily life.
Integrating self-compassion into daily life involves making it a consistent part of one's mental and emotional habits. This can be achieved by setting aside regular time for self-compassion practices such as loving-kindness meditation and reflective meditation. Additionally, individuals can cultivate mindfulness in their daily activities, paying attention to their thoughts and emotions with a compassionate and non-judgmental attitude.
Another practical approach is to use self-compassionate language when talking to oneself.
This involves replacing self-critical thoughts with more supportive and understanding statements.
For example, instead of saying, "I'm such a failure," one might say, "I made a mistake, but I can learn from it and do better next time." By consciously choosing compassionate self-talk, individuals can reinforce positive mental habits and reduce the impact of guilt. Engaging in self-care activities that promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being is also important.
This can include practices such as regular exercise, healthy eating, adequate rest, and engaging in activities that bring joy and fulfillment. By taking care of themselves, individuals reinforce the message that they are worthy of kindness and compassion.
In conclusion, the practice of self-compassion is a vital aspect of Buddhist teachings on dispelling guilt.
By treating oneself with kindness, recognizing common humanity, and cultivating mindfulness, individuals can transform their relationship with guilt and foster a more balanced and resilient state of being. Through techniques such as loving kindness meditation, reflective meditation, and mindful self-inquiry, they can develop a compassionate self-view that supports personal growth and ethical living. Despite the challenges, integrating self-compassion into daily life offers profound benefits for mental and emotional well-being, paving the way for a more peaceful and liberated existence.
4. Conclusion. Buddhist teachings offer a comprehensive and compassionate approach to dealing with guilt.
By understanding the conditioned nature of guilt, practicing mindfulness, cultivating self-compassion, living ethically, and embracing forgiveness, individuals can free themselves from the burdens of guilt. These practices, supported by the wisdom of the Buddhist tradition, provide a path towards a more harmonious and liberated life. In a world where guilt can often seem overwhelming, the teachings of the Buddha offer a beacon of hope and a practical guide to inner peace. By integrating these teachings into daily life, one can move beyond guilt and towards a state of true happiness and liberation.
Forgiveness means not feeling angry with an offense, flaw, or mistake and not holding a grudge.
This is a positive state of mind we need to develop in response to not only the harmful things others have done and mistakes they have made, but also in response to our own negative actions and mistakes. To do this, we need to distinguish ourselves as a person from any specific action or mistake we have made. When we think of ourselves, we need to think in terms of our entire life. And if we accept the Buddhist teachings on rebirth, then all our past and future lives as well. When we open our minds to considering ourselves in this larger context, we see that any negative action or mistake we've made was just one incident. We've done so many other things in our life, and unless we are Buddhas, we inevitably make mistakes. If we identify ourselves with just a mistake or wrongdoing we've done and hold on to it as our true identity, the result is that we feel guilty.
The longer we hold on, the longer we feel guilty and the worse we feel. Forgiving ourselves does not mean forgetting about what we've done, as if it didn't matter. We take responsibility for the harm we have done or the mistakes we have made. But we don't hold on to them with guilt, and we don't get angry with ourselves. We acknowledge our wrongdoings and mistakes, let go of identifying ourselves solely with them, thinking we're a bad person or an idiot, and apply the four opponent forces. Feel regret. Resolve to try our best not to repeat the harmful action or mistake. Reaffirm the positive direction we are trying to put in our lives.
Correct our mistake, if possible, counteract the harm we've done by apologizing, also if possible, and counterbalance it with some positive actions.
The benefits of dispelling guilt in accordance with Buddhist teachings are profound and multifaceted.
By cultivating clarity of mind, freedom from self-blame, compassion, present moment awareness, ethical conduct, wisdom, and healing, practitioners can experience a transformative journey towards inner peace and spiritual fulfillment. These teachings provide practical guidance for addressing guilt in a way that promotes personal well-being and contributes to a more harmonious society.